Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Greetings, good afternoon, peace and blessings to everyone. Welcome to another edition of Kap or No Kap. I'm your special guest host today, Andy King, filling in for Kevin Megan, who's out on assignment. You know, the show has been giving so much great information to all our listeners and viewers all across the globe. And today's conversation is not going to be any different. We're going to tackle a subject that's very dear to so many men, that's dear to so many children, but dear to so many families. And that is the journey to manhood. You know, the journey to manhood is a formula that's very simple, but if it's never applied, it can be the demise of the family, the demise of the son, demise of the father. And we want to make sure that people understand, no matter if you're black, white, red, purple, whatever your ethnicity is, the man, the strength of the man is truly the cornerstone of the family, while the mother is the backbone of the household. So we want to make sure that today's conversation touches on so many variables that make sure that our young brothers understand what it is and what society has done today to make sure that manhood is still manhood, or whether they've stripped down what a real man should be today. Joining me today in today's conversation is going to drop some wisdom, some guidance and strength about what it is, that journey for them as brothers on this earth who are fathers themselves, but who have had a history of doing things and serving and helping people. First, I'd like to welcome to today's Kap or No Kap my good friend, a pastor who's done so much work in the Bronx. He's also the chair, the community relations, the community director of Stand Up to Violence for Jacoby Medical Center. I want to welcome the good pastor, Jay Gooden, to Kap or No Kap. Also, joining us today, we want to introduce a good brother who's out here, who has a story to tell, who's been on the fight and the grind each and every day in the hip hop world, but has done it right, who's gone through experiences and has a real testimony for us to hear. I want to welcome the great artist from the hip hop world, Brother My Son. Welcome to Kap or No Kap. Good to see you gentlemen today. How are you?
All is well, all is well. Good to be with you, Andy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Peace and blessings to us all. So, you know, the conversation we're going to have for the next 45 minutes is going to be about how do we identify what manhood is. What does that journey look like? And I know yesterday there was a conversation on another platform called King Talk Tuesday where you brothers were talking about the journey of manhood and what manhood actually means. So let's jump in right there and just start right there for the viewers who are watching. Can you both just identify for us, and I'll start with you, Pastor, talk to us a little about what is manhood?
Well, manhood to me simply means that we are protectors of our families, we're providers, we're men of integrity, men of honesty, and we're one that men ought to be godly men also. And I think that's something that's kind of missing right now from our manhood. Coming up in the Christian community, in the Christian home, my father was a bishop, you know, taught us the difference between right and wrong, taught us the difference of evil and good, and taught us the difference of having God in our lives. And so I believe that the man journey to manhood ought to be about that integrity and about being honest and a provider to his family.
Well, I appreciate that answer. My son, talk to us as a man who's lived it, loved it, and still doing it. Talk to us. What is manhood for you?
I think manhood for me is the separation of just male to man. You know, male is the physical attributes of a male. You know, manhood is the principles that man upholds. You know, manhood is adopting principles that make you a provider, protector, someone who is honorable, who has integrity, someone who embodies, you know, what the Bible says that manhood should look like. A man who is his word is honorable, you know, who is strong in his conviction, who is firm, yet who is loving, who is empathetic. You know, there's a plethora of things that embody man, but I think it's the principles that you take on, man. It's just when someone can look at you and your word means something to someone, when you're an honorable individual, when people see you and they're encouraged, when you're able to motivate people, when you're able to, young boys look to you as a model of something that they want to become because it's such a positive light. You know, I think that's what manhood is for me.
So I'm hearing you talk about a number of characteristics. So for you, Pastor, I know you're in the church and you happen to deal with men that are coming in who are strong, and I've heard a wise man say that it's better to build strong children than than prepare broken men. How do you do that in the church when a man comes in and trying to figure out his journey to manhood?
Well, I think the fact of the matter is that we all are flawed. And I like that quote that you just had from Frederick Douglass, that it is true, that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And the fact of the matter is that the Bible said we all have sinned and come short of the glory. And the fact of the matter, you're looking at somebody. 16 years of my life, I was on drugs. The bishop's son. You know, they always say PKs, pastor kids, preacher kids are worse. You know, so but yet I know that God gives us another chance, and every day above ground is another day to get it right. And so we recognize the fact of the matter is that sin, we're born into sin, but yet the fact of the matter is that we all have to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And if we can change that mind, change the norm, especially today's norm, that says that anything goes, that everything is all right. And if we can change that mindset of young men, and really catch them at an early age and instill that in them, that those values, that integrity that my song is talking about, that honorable. You know, if we can instill that in them as youth, amen, they can grow up to be great men, even in the midst of making mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes. It has been said that a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from other mistakes. So it's so true if we can get that wisdom and learn from each other.
And that's interesting because people think because you're on the planet and you're smart offers you wisdom. You know, wisdom comes with longevity. And the spirit of the Most High just dropping some wisdom, some insight on you from time to time. So my son, you know, I know the world that you're in as an activist, and a lot of young brothers are trying to figure out that journey to manhood. What do you do as an artist to ensure that you're giving a message of manhood to those people who look up to you?
And for me, you know, just understanding my own journey, right? And knowing I was once a young, impressionable kid from the Bronx growing up in impoverished communities where crime and negativity dwelled so much, right? And actually gravitating to that because the first vision of success I ever seen was a drug dealer, right? That I didn't live next door to a lawyer. I didn't live next door to a doctor. The first person who had the car that I wanted was a drug dealer. He had the girl that I wanted. He had the respect in the community. So my first vision of success was that, and understanding that mentality that is prevalent in our communities, and that's why they gravitate to those things. What I do is understand that, and I meet them there, right? I let them know that those things can be obtained without negativity, right? That manhood is not based on what you have, it's who you are. It's not what's on you, it's what's in you, right? So that's the mind state that's how I mentor my youth, right? I don't mentor them from the position I am. I mentor them from where I was, because I always say to myself, in order for someone to be able to reach me when I was 14 or 15, what would they have had to say? You know, how would they have had to come to me? They would have to come to me in a uniform or in a manner in which I was accustomed to, that I could relate to.
I like that.
Right? A lot of times, you know, it's not anything different, but a lot of, you know, well-to-do and people who have been established and are a little far removed from the community, who have good intentions, don't really reach the kids because they don't see you inside of them, right? So I want them to see them inside of me every time I have a conversation with them. So I don't speak at them, I don't accuse them. I understand where they come from. A lot of people say, oh, you glorify the streets. No, I understand the streets. I understand that the streets actually gave me morals and principles that I didn't get anywhere else. And some people don't understand that. But there was a code when I grew up, right? There was a code even when you was in the street. You protected the woman, right? You protected your neighborhood. You didn't violate the older folks. You know, if women and children were off limits. These were things that I grew up as. Your word was your bond. You know, all of these things, those principles for me came from the street. My father died when I was 11 years old, so he gave me a lot of them, but a lot of those things, as I got older, I got from the street. So I still transformed those principles and said to myself, a drug dealer can only sell drugs, but a hustler or someone who is motivated can sell anything. So
Right.
you take the same principles that you got from the streets and you transfer them to every aspect of life. And that's how I talk to these kids. I said the same clothes you want to wear, you want to go to club. Everybody wants to do those things, but you can do them in a positive light. You can live honorably and still have the same culture you have. Somehow we've been taught that our culture is engulfed in negativity and violence. No, it's not. That's just something, because you see what happens when you give us the opportunities that you give everybody else. You see what happened to 50 Cent and Jay-Z. These same drug dealers on the block, and they went and started controlling corporate America, right? So once you got it, and it doesn't have to be used for negativity. And that's how I transform these young boys to men with that same mentality. It's like, no, you don't have to use anything. You don't have to lose anything that you've ever had. Anything that you have. I remember I was having a conversation, and Farrakhan told me, I don't want you to change nothing you're doing, because you're reaching a demographic that won't even listen to anything that I'm saying. I want you to just make sure that you transform it to where it's still respected by them, but it's transformed and is used in a positive manner. So I think that's what I do. I try to evolve my message every day and never glorify my circumstances, acknowledge my circumstances, and then glorify the growth that I had from those circumstances.
I like what you just said, glorifying the growth, because some of us get stuck in glorifying the nasty, the wicked, the ugly, and because the system feeds us with that and makes money off of that, we continue the perpetual cycle of self-destruction in our own neighborhoods and in our communities and even in our homes. So when you talk about the value system, I know, pastor in the church, there's always that value system. Talk to us a little about what are some of the values that you see that young brothers should be taught from fathers to son on their journey to manhood.
Well, I think one of the things they have to do, and again, something that we had discussed last night, is leading by example. Sometimes it's not about rather what you say, but rather what you do. And it's so important to teach them that value, and for us to be, as father figures, to be that role model, to instill that value in them. But some of the things we try to teach our young people is biblical principles. Being providers for our family. And I think somewhere in our culture, in our society today, we've lost that order in the home. Used to be a time when dad, you was afraid, you reverence your dad. You was afraid if you got in trouble. I know in my home with my dad, even though my father was a bishop, he didn't spare the rod. You know what I mean? So we was used to it. As a matter of fact, back in my day also, it took a village to raise a child.
Oh yeah.
So I often say, back every block had a Miss Betty that sat by the window, knew what happened, and could whip your butt for you getting in trouble, for you cussing. We knew that. But nowadays we're living again in our society has flipped, our culture has flipped, that we have no more order. So it's up to us to kind of instill, yes, the old school values, but yet realize it's a new day, and how do we transform that? I often say that the message is still the same, but the methods have changed. And so we can understand those methods, but yet hold on to that same message. Yes, you gotta be a man, you gotta be a provider. If you're a father, take care of your children. I thank God that I had my first child when I was 16 years old, and I never forsake my children. My daughter, she went home to be with the Lord last year, but at the age of 41. But the fact of the matter is that I took care of my children. I wasn't one of those runaway dads. And I think if we can instill that in young men of today, and teach them these things, teach them to put God first in all that they do, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. Right. So I think that's something that we're lacking today also, is those godly values. Back in our day, and Andy, I use you an example too, because me and you grew up in that same age frame. Back in our day, parents always try to send, most parents I should say, even if they didn't go to church, they sent their kids to Sunday school. Yeah. So they had a choice of good and evil. They knew about right and wrong. They knew something about the Bible, whether it was Noah, whether it was Adam, so they knew something about the Bible. But again, it's up to us today. And as a pastor, I try to instill this into our young people, that, there is a difference between right and wrong, and there's consequences for our behavior. Every action has a consequence to it.
You know, you said something that I'm hearing that, you know, my son, you're part of a generation, and he actually said, you know, we're part of an old school generation, and there's even older school. But just like fine wine gets better in time, doesn't mean that we discard old rules, old school, and standards and of manners and etiquette. How do you transition and transfer the conversation of old school values and bringing it into the new day of world? Because the old school values kept us alive. The old school values kept us a part of one another. The old school values kept us connected. The old school values kept us respected. The old school values kept us in control. It's like the genie has been let out of the bottle and old school is being disrespected. Old school is being ignored while the new school is jumping off the cliff at an alarming rate. Talk to us, my son. How do we transition old school conversations into the new school world?
I think that's a very good question, and it's very important. I think it's pretty much my life's work. You know, I grew up with my grandmother and grandfather were pretty much my main providers. You know, my mother was addicted to drugs when I was young. My father died when I was 11. So I grew up in a house where my grandmother was 60 and my grandfather was 70. You know, so I was raised by older school values, and they had a lot of brothers and sisters. So I was raised in that. And I realized the mind state that I had was a lot different than a lot of my peers because old school values that I had. And I realized that even now. But I think what it is, like they say, there's really nothing new under the sun, right? So it's just the translation of the values, right? It's just the way that you say, it's the way that you present those values, because they still want to have those values, but they just don't know what they are. They've been taught something different. So it's just giving them, it's like they say, sometimes you got to put a little cherry inside the medicine, right? They can't believe, you can't make them think that you're actually helping them, right? Sometimes they got to just think that it just tastes good, but it's actually helping them. So the way that you give the message is like the way that I give my message. I did this freestyle for Funk Master Flex, and I combined it with so many things that was going on in the current culture with the values that I grew up on, right? And they were weaved in and out of this verse to where the young kids were amazed. They were astonished by it, right? So it's just interchanging it and interjecting it inside of the culture right now. The same values, because when they see that it works for you, when you look like a person of the culture, and they see you stand a certain way and move a certain way and get a level of respect and see women react to you a certain way, they want to be that, right? So they've only seen people get that reaction who are doing negative things. This is what they only see because that's what's highlighted, right? So when you start to highlight someone who lives by the older principles, like Nipsey Hussle was an example of someone who lived by those older principles, who talked about those older principles, always talked about honor and respect and carrying himself like a man and the things we need to do as a people. He wasn't exalted until he died, but most people knew about that, right? But you see that the principles that stood on him is what made people gravitate to him. After his death, people went and started to research this man and said, wow, the way that he spoke, the way that he conducted himself, it wasn't like this new school generation. He looked like he was of the generation, but his soul was way more deeper than the generation. So I think it's all about presentation. I think that we have to, even as older school, we have to evolve ourselves. Like, if we don't evolve, we die. Like, just like companies, if you watch companies, they figured out how do I attach myself to this culture, right? If I don't attach myself, if I don't get involved with technology, if I don't got a Twitter page, if I ain't got an Instagram page, and I'm trying to continue to stay relevant, then that's not really going to happen. You can stay and you can keep what you have, and you're not going to lose that because what you've already gained has come with you. But if you're trying to gain these young people, then you have to meet these young people exactly where they are.
I like that.
Jackson, that was so powerful what my son said, and we've been doing something in the Church of God in Christ, doing a series on pivot or die. And I think this pandemic have made a lot of churches, even I'm looking at that from a spiritual standpoint, either pivot or die. And one of the things, like he said, just trying to yet be relevant, but yet keep that same message. And one of the things, and you can attest to this, sometimes you'll see me in the suit, sometimes I got on my Timbs and my jeans,
right.
and I think, many times the old school was, well, if we didn't see you in a suit and tie, not knocking you, Andy, in your bow ties, you look terrific, man. I love it, but sometimes I have to throw my sweatsuit and my sneakers.
That's right. Yeah.
As he said, being relevant. I think it's so important for us to recognize today's society. We either have to pivot or we not.
True. I like that, being there, have to pivot. And because that's what the whole world is about, pivoting and growing and adjusting. So you both of you gentlemen have hit the nail on the head as far as what this world looks like for our young men. But before we go to a break, I would just want to ask you all, when we start talking about the messaging, and my son, you was talking about the messaging of old school and how they are delivering it, and today's new school messaging. When it comes to what we're hearing in the industry, whether it's song, whether it's dance, or whether it's movies, how is that having an impact on the behavior of the journey of manhood?
Well, for me, it has a big impact because what we see is if you can't see it, you can't be it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why companies pay to promote. They put something in your face over and over because they're creating a culture. If you look in different countries, they dress different. Right? If you look at most of the Middle Eastern countries, most of them are Muslim and they dress a certain way because that is what the culture is. Not so much that they were born this way, but the culture dictated. That's what they saw on TV every day. That's what the culture dictated. So if you look anywhere in the world, the culture dictates who the people are. The people, most of the time, the people don't dictate who the culture are. Right? So we understand what we see is what's creating the mind state and the culture of our individuals. So we have to be equally as vigilant in giving them something else. I have this conversation with radio DJs and video people all the time on a lot of these websites, and I say, I don't want you to congratulate what I'm doing in private, right? I don't want you to congratulate me in private, but then give Future and Lil Wayne and public publicity, right? And play their music all the time, but you won't give the kids the opportunity to hear the message that I have. You don't give me the same platform and access to the minds and ears and visions of these kids to be able to, so they can make a decision, right? If it's only one candidate, then that candidate wins automatically, right? By default, because there's nobody else to run against them. And I think that's what's happening in the culture. And it's not, and I don't want it to be one way, right? Because that's the balance of the world, unfortunately, is negative and positive. That is the balance of the world. Okay. It's just that right now it's out balance, and it's too much negative and no positive.
All right. Thank you for that. We need to take a quick break. We'll be back on Kap or No Kap on Millennial TV.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV. bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome back to Kap or No Kap. I'm your special guest host, Andy King. You can view us on Roku TV as well as Millennial TV. So we're thankful for everyone who's joining us today as we're having a great conversation about the journey to manhood with two distinguished guests, Pastor Jay Gooden and my son, the journal of great hip-hop artists in the struggle of making sure that equality and fairness happens to all brothers and sisters across the globe. We've been having a spirited conversation. I want to jump right back into my son was just telling us a little bit about the journey of how television, music, and the industry portrays a message that sometimes violates us, destroys us, and misguides us each and every day. So, Pastor, I want you to jump in as well, because our young minds, our young brothers, our young prince, our young kings, you know, when they're watching or hearing lyrics on a song, whether drop a Molly, pop a Molly, and drop a Molly in, and you know, and getting a girl all twisted upside down, or calling a sister out of her name, or even calling a brother out of his name, we know that old school has been a way of saying how that certain values in our system would not allow us to treat each other with that. But for whatever reason, the industry today has started to make a profit off the demise of, and I'll call it for what it is, the black community, the black brothers and the black soul. And Kevin Megid, who normally hosts, made a statement yesterday in yesterday's conversation that the system of oppression, white supremacy, is fearful of the strength of the black male. That's why they spend so much time in trying to destroy the strength, because they know when the black male puts their hands on anything, it turns into gold. Talk to us a little bit about the messaging that's happening that comes from the external factors outside of the home, whether it's music, television, or radio.
Well, the fact of the matter is that I believe that we're living in a day of negativity. And from a spiritual standpoint, again, I got to put my pastor hat on. So, you know, the Bible said faith cometh by hearing, hearing by the word of God. But we're hearing what we hear, we become. And I think we're living in such a negative society. Everything is so negative. We see it now even in our politics. Everything is so negative. Andy, me and you and I were born into a day, again, I'm going to use the old school, when television only had about, this before your time, my son, television only had about 6 channels.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Television went off like 2 o'clock in the morning. They just conclude your television day. They sung the Star Spangled Banner.
That's right.
You know, now television stays on 365, 24/7. You know, and our kids now, the young people, they're not, well, I'll put it this way, a lot of them are just into these iPads now. My little grandson, 5 years old, just stays on his iPad. But when you look at the negativity that's on our television, that's in our music today, you know, calling women out of their name. You know, I grew up in a time when love songs were popular, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Growing up again in the Christian home, you know, I had to listen to James Cleveland and Walter Hawkins, and so I had to sneak my Earth, Wind, and Fire and my Billy Preston, Al Green in the house. But now we live in such a negative society that, you know, even when you turn on the cartoons, I mean, I'm not gonna mention the cartoon by name, y'all know what I'm talking about. There's a cartoon that be cussing. I was letting my grandson watch it. I was like, what is this? You know, and so our kids now are just being brought up into this negative, as my son said earlier, this negative culture. And that's what it is. And again, I have to look at the Bible, and I often say this even to our church, the Bible is being fulfilled. When we look into the last days, we see all of this stuff that was prophesied is coming into fruition.
Right.
And it's being manifested right before our very eyes. But yet God still has a remnant that somebody must continue to at least give our young people that haven't even become into full manhood yet. We have to give them that opportunity, give them that choice, let them hear the other side. And it's just a sad commentary that we do live today in everything, just about everything we do is built from negativity. And it's just and that's why we're grateful for artists such as my son that's giving that positive message. As he said, Nipsey Hussle, that's giving that positive message. And we need more of that, but that's not what sells. We know what sells is the negativity.
Right.
And it's praying time. I said last night, the Bible said, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I'll hear from heaven, forgive their sins and heal the land. And if there's ever been a time that we need a healing in the land, now is the time. Now is the time.
Well, we definitely can use a healing. And a lot of people are scared to talk about the spiritual realm, the spiritual forces that are around us each and every day. But wickedness is part of the spiritual world as well. And if you can't find a way to get yourself out of that wickedness, you will succumb to it and be destroyed by it. And I thank you, Pastor, for dropping a few scriptures on us, because people don't want to read some of the stuff that's in the Bible. Even I spoke to a number of pastors who won't delve right into Revelations and have the real conversation with their congregation, because that means now you have to hold yourself accountable to the words that just came out of your mouth. You have to hold yourself accountable to the words that you're reading in the Bible. You just can't feed the flock some stuff and go do the opposite of what the scriptures just told you to do. And that's how people are living, and each and every day. So for our young kings and our young queens, if no one is not leading them correctly, I read a scripture somewhere in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, Christ is the head of man, man is the head of woman. And we know we will all serve together, but if a brother ain't getting it right, what is our sisters to do? So so that now you see why you have this transition of and I don't like what I see when it comes to some of our men, and I want to transition over to the messaging of what a man should be. I've heard some of the characteristics that you both laid out earlier about the strength, the commitment, the honesty, the consistency, some of these values, which I'm going to ask you a little bit about more characteristics. But now you see there's this messaging of feminizing the strength of the man, especially the black man. I was always told, brother said, if you lift up your mind, your pants will follow. I have no idea why people think it's okay to wear, and I see it's a coordinated effort. I see they have the underwear matching the belt coordinating with the shirt, and the pants are always down underneath their cheek. What man does that? So talk to us a little bit about this culture of feminizing men. Talk to us, my son, give us your insight of what you're seeing.
I think it's definitely it's a culture, and it's a coordinated attack on especially black manhood, because the strength of the black man has always been something that has been feared by his oppressor. His strength, his sturdiness, all of those things have always been feared by the oppressor. And I think they're showing us a lot more things to feminize us. They're using the word toxic with masculinity, which is something that I am vehemently against. I don't think anything can be toxic about masculinity. The same way I don't think anything can be toxic about femininity. I think the masculine person can have faults and can be flawed, but I don't think to label it toxic masculinity is by accident. It's to make men more docile and more gentle and more calm, because it's easier for you to walk in and take advantage of us. And we've always been seen as violent when we stand up for ourselves, or the mad black, so those things, there's a coordinated effort to stop that, to docile the black man and make him more easier target, because they fear the evolution and revolt against, the violations that we are constantly being faced with. So it's definitely a coordinated effort, and I think, what they do is the powers that be have the ability to promote whatever. Like you said, is what we see, right? If the main artists you see happen to be more feminine, right, and you see the more masculine artists, they're telling you that that's dated. You know, they tell me that the way what it is that I represent is dated. You know, and the kids now their hair should be colorful. It's just there's no boundaries. You're too caught up in this thing, and for me, where there's no boundaries, there's chaos. Where there's no clear definition of what something is, then you don't know what it is. You know, we live in an era now where this culturally fluid thing where you don't have to have a definition, you don't have to have agenda, and if that's your thing, cool, that's your thing. But my thing is, I'm strong, and I want to talk about my masculinity. I'm confident. I enjoy the fact that I'm a man and a man's man.
Right.
You know, I enjoy the fact that I'm an alpha male, and I live my life in accordance to those things. And I have no problem when I'm telling people I want my sons to follow in those footsteps. If they decide to do something different, they're individuals, like I said. But if they decide to do something different, but they're going to see me in this masculine, fully masculine role every time they see me. I'm not going to water it down to fit into anything. I'm not going to try to peacefully coexist with society's new fluidity. That's not who I am. And I think as men, we have to stand firm in that, right? We have to make sure that we stand firm, and every time that we are given an opportunity, we state that. And I have no problem being this masculine man. I don't want to fit into that. This is what I am, and I want to make sure that you know that is an option. That is what you should do, even if you don't, unless you don't want to do that. But this is an option. Masculinity is definitely something.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. Masculinity is definitely something that we need to promote each and every day. To our brothers, we cannot be scared to exude our masculinity in fear of them trying to label it as danger. And it is so sad that in the world today that we are seeing this each and every day, from commercials, from advertisements, from even agendas, and how people just think it's okay to comment and say anything about anything with no wisdom and no guidance, no anything on this. One of the things that, I've read somewhere where it's like, smart people and the smart tongues have been told to be silent so they don't offend the ignorant mind. Well, that's the problem with this world. We're so busy trying to conform to stupidity that we can't get it right and do the smart thing or have the great conversation or the conversation that's moving and stimulating, that protects the families, protects the black man, protects the man. Any man, it doesn't make a difference if you're white, black, brown, yellow. A man should be always a man and should never be fearful of being a man and staying a man. Today's conversation has been so spirited that we want to continue to have this kind of conversation, and I want to get my guests back in, and I want to ask Pastor, Pastor, I need you to talk to us again. You heard what Brother My Son was just sharing in regards to the femininity of the man. We know what scriptures say about man and man and man with man and man being with woman. Talk to us a little about, in the spiritual world, about the feminizing of men in this world today.
The Bible says pride cometh before the fall. And I know we've in Pride Month, and let me just say this. Many times we look and we say about the oppressors, and we know that we're dealing with systemic racism. Yes, that's all been a part of America. But the fact of the matter, that's why I'm so grateful for these conversations, Andy, that you're having, that we can yet build ourselves up and transform our own minds and recognize it's going to take us as a black man, and that male figure, to be that, as my son was talking about, that masculine figure. It's time for us to take this back, and we as people have to have these type of conversations. We have to, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the street. I've been grateful and blessed over the last 20 years or so, and Andy, you participated with us, that I've had a street revival, 3-night street revival right there on Gun Hill Road. Due to the pandemic, we didn't have it this year, but I'm looking forward to, again, having it to get that message out there. And I think, again, when we have that lack of God, and we're living in a day when people are calling wrong right wrong, and we're not putting God into what we do and putting God first, this is the society that we're falling prey to. And the fact of the matter is, that, everything now is acceptable. You know what I mean? Even in our government, everything is acceptable now. And it's a sad commentary again, But these are the times that we're living in. So again, putting my spiritual hat on is going to take us to God, to come back to God, you know, and if we're not, you know, it's a way that seemeth right to a man, but the ways thereof is destruction. And, you know, the thief cometh but to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what it seems to be right now. The enemy is destroying our society.
And I'm glad that you brought it and phrased it that way, because with the no holds barred conversation that's out here today, where people can say, do anything, the spiritual world gets disrespected, and people just think that it's okay to disrespect one set of people. And recognizing who America truly is, you hit the nail on the head. America has been built on oppression, it's been built with violence, it's been built with rape, it's been built with lies, it's been dealt with stealing, it's been dealt with cunningness. But the people who do it to everybody flip the script on everybody else. They act like everyone else is flawed and they're okay. And that's the sad thing, because the black man is the one who was brought over here minding his own business and built this country, but he's the lowest one on the totem pole. He's the one that gets disrespected the most, and there's always this knee on the neck of the black man, regardless if people come over to this country after the fact, after they build it. And there's still people still coming to America, you know, to use that term, but black people have been here an exception of this country and fought to free this country from this wickedness and his ways. But if you leave it up to the narrator of the story, we are the villains. We are the ones who make the world upside down when their story tells them how they've done it. We got to go to a break right now. We'll be right back on Kap or No Kap.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Okay, and we're back at Kap or No Kap. I'm your special host today, Andy King. You're watching us, and you can view it on Facebook as well as Roku TV, as well as Millennium TV, which is broadcasting all across the globe. We're thankful for this platform to have a conversation about the things that matter to so many of us. And today's conversation is about the journey to manhood. You know, when we start figuring out what is manhood, the world has flipped manhood down. They've almost made it like it's a crime to be a man, and if you are a man, you know, you get punished worse than someone who's not a man, or doesn't behave as a man. So we want to make sure that in this conversation today, from Pastor who's on, Pastor Jay Gooden, and my son, we're truly thankful to the General for dropping some science and wisdom on us today to help our young brothers at the ages of 10, 12, you know, because becoming a man doesn't start at 14. It's a buildup of all the experiences that you have from the time you enter into this world. And while I appreciate my mother for all that she did for me, if it wasn't for my dad being in my life, being in my house, and just giving me the guidance of what a man figure should look like, I would be lost. Who's to say where any of us can be and should be? And the testimony for so many brothers is because when they don't have that man figure in their lives, they mess up, they make bad errors. And trust me, we all being human, we all are going to make errors. Parenthood, there is no formula that says you're going to get it right, because we're dealing with personalities, we're dealing with bloods, we're dealing with skin and bones, you know, we're dealing with spirits, and all these things factor into how you grow as a human being. You know, one of the guests said, my son mentioned that our children are individuals, and one of the things that we can do is help them grow. But their example of manhood comes from their dad, comes from the male figure that's in their life. And I got to call it for what it is. Making a baby doesn't make you a great dad. You know, you just use a sperm donor. If you wasn't around your child, if you didn't offer no wisdom, if you didn't offer no protection, because the first relationship that a young lady has with the opposite sex is with the father. The first relationship that a son has with the opposite sex is with the mother. And if both of those adults get it wrong, trust me, you're going to have a person who's going to grow up who's going to get it wrong as well. So we got to do our job as fathers, as mothers, when we're raising our children, and especially when it comes to our men, because, yeah, a lot of our brothers have targets on their back just because of the strength, just because of our ancestry, just because they know what we're capable of, because we're great. Not only just great kings, we're great warriors, and we're great at solving things that this world has taken and used it for their own gain. So I want to ask our guests, you know, we're going into the last segment. I just want to, can you just share with some values that you think a man should have, that a father should be teaching a child on their journey to manhood? My son, let's start with you.
I think so many. I think, you know, everyone is like, I told you before, I'm writing a book called Raising Kings, in which I break down about 12 to 13 principles of manhood that I believe that we should, you know, encompass and grab onto throughout our journey as men. And for me, you know, the first one is just about integrity. I think integrity is probably the most important one. After you get integrity, the rest of them seem to come underneath, you know, respect, accountability, you know, honor, just those the core values. You know, I think your moral compass has to be very strong. You know, and I think that's what men do. Men, as fathers, we formulate our kids' moral compass. We don't get to tell them when to apply everything, but the moral compass that we give them, so they know, hey, this is not really right. My dad told me, like, that's not something I really should be doing as a man. And that's what our job is. Our job is to create that moral compass, give them that compass, and then they're able to gauge throughout their lives which one of those principles apply each and every time. And that's what it is. We have to give them that foundation. You know, the foundation is very strong for a young man. I have 3 sons. My oldest son being 23 years old, he just had a son, so I'm a grandfather now. I have a
congratulations.
Other son to be 10 years old, and my youngest son is 7. So just watching them all grow and understanding how every time I give them something to add to their moral compass, how they apply it. You know, just watching my sons do that. They watch me and they say, hey, Dad, what are you doing? Or why do you do this? And you know, that I'm a public figure, sometimes they go and see some of my things and hear it. You know, and they're starting to form their own moral compass, but it's definitely based off principles that I've given them throughout the time, throughout their lives, that they're able to apply themselves and make themselves whole.
I like that. Pastor, talk to us, a value system that every young brother should be. I know, and my son, I know he just hit a home run on us, so we're gonna put the bat back in your hand, and we're gonna give you a softball again. So go ahead.
Well, I'm a father of 4, 3 sons, grandfather of 7, and you know, I got my daughters. I said my daughter passed away, and I only have 1 granddaughter. The rest are 6 grandsons, and so I believe what my son said, and I think when you look at that word integrity defined, simply means doing the right thing when nobody's watching. And I think when we can set that example, guide our children, and each child has their own individual personality, and I'm so grateful. I have all 3 of my sons have worked with me in the church, they work with me in ministry, yet I understand that they still do stuff outside the church, and I've tried to show them that light. I show them how to be a father, how to be a husband. You know, I don't go around cussing out my wife. I don't go around beating their mothers. You know, so I've tried to set that example for them, to be a real man, to be a provider, take care. A real man provides for his family. You know, we don't even, you know, I got one son in particular, sometimes he goes through transitional jobs, but I thank God that he still has the mindset and the work ethic to get back up you know, and to get back on his job, you know, and understand that we have to be, because they're watching what we do.
Yes.
It's no longer about what you say, but it's rather what you do.
Right.
And I often say this, you know, Frederick Douglass said this, Andy, and I'll repeat it again. I said it before, I'll say it again. Some people make things happen, some people watch things happen, and then others say, what the hell just happened?
That's right.
It's up to us to make sure that we're making things happen, especially as men, as fathers, and understand that we're influencing somebody.
Right.
You know, one of the things that we have in our church, our theme this year is being a bright light in a dark world. And I use the scripture that let your light so shine before men that they may see your good work and glorify our Father which is in heaven. And many folk, they're working, but they're not doing good work. But we got to understand that folk are watching us, and we're influencing folk how we go about, not cheating the system. You know, as again, using that word integrity, doing the right thing when nobody's around, nobody's watching us.
Right.
And I think if we can set those moral standards, be protectors of our homes, providers for our families, you know, that's what the values that I want to instill in my sons and for those that are watching me. And love, that agape love, you know, love, not a retaliatory spirit, but even when folk treat you wrong, the Bible said we have to even love our enemies. And I think what we're lacking today, we're lacking love in our society. We're lacking love in our homes. We're lacking love on our jobs, in our communities. We're lacking love. If we can go back to loving, you know, the Bible said that love covers a multitude of sins. And if we can love folk, I often say at the church, you know, I said we got to be able to love the hell out of people, you know, because people got some hellish ways.
Yeah.
But when you can learn how to yet overlook that and still love folk without being retaliatory, doesn't mean I told him last night in my Bible study, doesn't mean I got to invite you to the barbecue. But at the same time, you know, we're going to get love. We don't love their ways sometimes. We don't love their actions. But we still have to love the people because God is love. And if we say we have God, we have to love one another.
Wow, that was powerful. I got to say amen to that. You mentioned something about love. And then it leads me to go into the next question. And I like the term that you said we got to love the hell out of people. And for all our viewers, when we talk about love the hell out of people, we have, as you said, Pastor, we have hellish ways inside of us. You know, we have destructive ways that don't allow people to come in and say, I want to even love you, because that the hell that's in you is more prominent than the love that's in your, that should be shining out of you. So when you say loving somebody, love the hell out of them, I want our viewers to understand what you actually mean. That loving the hell is getting those hellish ways, and in spite of those hellish ways, we're going to love you till all that wickedness comes out of you. We're going to love you just because Christ said you are his child, and he's given us he's ordained us to be our brothers and sisters keepers. And I want people to understand this. There's a difference between love and lust. We're not talking about lust here. We're talking about love, pure, undefiled love, you know, and to visit the fatherless and the widowless in time of affliction. That's what pure, defiled love is, according to our scripture. So I just say to everyone that's out there viewing us, find that special place of love in your heart and do what you can, because there is that brother who is out there. So my son, this is for both of you. When you have love and you're trying to love the hellish out of someone, and someone just keeps throwing the hell back at you, what do you tell a young brother who is trying to be a good brother, but another brother can't figure out how to receive it for whatever purposes, whether it's envy, jealousy? And I was taught, if someone truly hates you, they just ignore you. It's better to be hate than someone envy and jealousy, because you don't exist to them. But when someone is jealous of it, they spend every waking moment trying to figure out how to put a thorn inside your foot every day. Talk to us a little bit about, what do we tell our young brothers, you know, when they come across that brother who just can't receive?
You know, what I say is this: you have to protect your space, right? You have to protect your mental, you have to protect your energy, and you know, and everybody is not going to receive. That's right. And when you understand that, and then some people receive at different times. You can't give anybody anything until they're ready to receive it. So just because you want to give it to them doesn't mean they're going to take it. So you know, you just have to protect your space and acknowledge who you're dealing with. You know, don't ever put yourself so far into anything to where it harms you, because you can't help anybody if you're not whole. And if you're putting yourself in your mental space into something that doesn't agree with who you are and your own evolution, your own growth, and your own peace. So you have to protect your peace, but at the same time, there's always someone else who does want to receive what you get, right? Surround yourself around people who are willing and ready to receive what you give. Sometimes you can offer something to somebody and they know that you have it, right? So once you offer, you've done the thing. And when they're ready to receive what it is that you have, they're gonna come seek it. You know, you don't have to force anything on anybody. When they're ready, and if they're ever ready to receive what you have, they'll come and seek you out because they know that you have it.
That is a powerful message, especially for that 13 or 14-year-old. I run a youth program as well. And one of the things I would always ask these teens, and I would ask them, what is the number one thing that matters to you in your life? They're in elementary and middle school, and even in high school. And they would say, well, I need a job. I need some money. I want to eat. I had to remind them, the number one thing that happens for teens is that they want to be accepted. And they'll go far and beyond to be accepted for the wrong reasons and sometimes for the right reasons. So your message, my son, it hits the nail on the head because not everyone is ready to receive the love. Not everyone is going to be your friend. And once a young brother understands that, they can protect their own essence by not forcing the love that Christ has in their heart, because, again, not everyone is going to be able to reset. Pastor, as you move throughout and you're dealing with the generation of now, how are you able to get the word of Christ into them, because the devil is running rampant right now?
Right. And again, thank you again. It's a great question. Again, the message don't change. The methods change. And it's about right now, even what we do with Jacoby Hospital Stand Up to Violence, we see that gun violence is the leading cause of death in the African-American community between the ages of 14 and 25. And we're trying to change that norm. We're trying to change that norm. And I often tell folk that God is never gonna judge you for what folk do to you, but you will be judged for how you react to what's done to you. And many of us, we have a retaliatory spirit, and we're trying to save lives. I do, one of the jobs that I do, I'm a eulogist also, besides pastoring 2 churches and director of community outreach, president of the clergy council, the 449 precinct, the 44 precinct, and working with the 47 precinct. But the fact of the matter is, as a eulogist, I often have to tell parents, and I say this, Andy, that when a husband loses a wife, he's called a widower. When a wife loses a husband, she's called a widow. When a child does not have a parent, they're an orphan. But there's no name for when a parent loses a child, except pain. And the fact of the matter, we have to let these young people know that, you know, not only do they affect their own lives, not only do they affect a victim's life, but they're affecting their own mother's life, their parents' lives. And we're touching somebody's life, whether we realize it or not. So the message is simply clear, is that, you know, let a man examine himself. You know, we have to examine ourselves. And if we can teach that self-examination to people, that's why we're so grateful for what you do with the young people in the community. And again, I applaud you, my brother. And I got to keep saying that, because even though right now you're not an elected official, you're still working that community, still about trying to save lives. And I think each one teach one. And if we can all try to reach one, we are better together. So we got to continue to get that message out there, that the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. And we gotta understand that and recognize that each one of us is going to be judged on our own merits, you know. And if we can get that to young people, to recognize that there is a better way, that God has given them a way out. But again, it's about getting programs and getting discussions such as we're having today to our young black males, to let them know there is some positivity. There is some young men like my son that's out there, that have transitioned, that have turned his life around, that has a message. And if they hear, faith cometh by hearing by the word.
Well, I thank you for that. And I heard a famous quote from a gentleman saying, "We're better together. We're better together. We're better together." My son, I'd like to know from you, and I'd like you to tell our viewers, when it starts having a conversation about the truth to our young brothers, how do we help them understand what is true and what is fictional in the messaging that's out here today?
That's a good question. You know, I think through our own wisdom, right? Like I tell my son all the time, like, I'm a cheat sheet through life. Like, I've experienced things that you haven't experienced yet, but you'll probably get there. And if you just take the guidance that I'm giving you, then you don't have to ever make the mistakes that I've made, right? So I think when we have a level of discernment that they have yet to reach, that they don't know that.
Right.
When you don't know that you don't know everything. You never know that you don't know everything until you find out you don't know everything.
I like that. That's true.
You don't know somebody's not your best friend until you find out they're not your best friend. Because all the time, everybody, you don't know that you ain't gonna be with this girl for the rest of your life until you find out you ain't gonna be.
That's right.
Every time you have all these ideas in your head, and as you grow and you evolve and mature and you gain wisdom, that's the thing you realize that you really don't know. Right? So what we're able to do is utilize our wisdom, and based on the things that we're seeing on TV and we see on social media, I'm able to tell them that you can't base your whole life on the best 60 seconds of somebody else's. You know, you see 60 seconds of somebody in the video, and they got money and they got all these. This is 60 seconds. You don't know what happened, nothing on this, and you're telling yourself that you're underachieving based on 60-second clips that somebody puts their whole life on here. And you don't know what is going on in that person's life. You don't know what they went through. You don't know if that's theirs. You don't know anything. And that's what a lot of our young kids do. They base their lives off 60 and 30-second clips of somebody else's whole life.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't make sense. So when I explain it to them that, and then when I hear certain narratives being painted about certain activities and things within the streets and the culture, I can speak from experience. I can speak from a level of experience and say, look, I actually went through that.
Right.
And I can show you what the results of that is. That these people ain't really been through that. It sounds good on that, you know. And when you build up that respect with these young kids, and then they start to see you in that light, then you're able to give them that information. You're able to give them that wisdom and tell them, look, based on what I know and what I've been through, you know. And then what happens is, what happened with my oldest son, you know, 3 years ago, I woke up to Facebook. You know, we would always have like different things, and I would allow him to make his decisions, but not enough. I let you swim. I'm not gonna let you drown. Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you swim. I know you can't really swim in the deep end. You like you can't. I'm gonna let you go in there. Then when you start, I'm gonna jump in there with the life and get you out.
Right.
You know, and we had gone through that so much that one day, like after us going back and forth through things, he just woke up one day and wrote on Facebook, you know, today I finally realized that my daddy never told me nothing that was wrong.
That's
Everything
a blessing.
he ever told me was 100% correct, and if I would have listened, I'd have been locked up. And that's what we want. That's the moment that we wait for the transition of these kids, when they start to realize, because they're gonna make their own mistakes, they're gonna do certain things. But when they realize that you always told them the right way to go, and they start saying, Dad, well, my dad didn't tell me to do that, or my mentor didn't tell me to go that way, I didn't listen, and I should have went that way. And the people who went that way is actually winning. They start saying, well, he might know something.
Wow.
You know, and that's what we hope for.
That's what we hope for. We're about to close out, and I end with this. You know, my son, you talked about your son, the wisdom, but I leave you with this. There's one thing the wise man truly knows. There's only one thing that the wise man truly knows, that he doesn't know. Thank you all, Pastor, my son. Thank you for joining today. We'll be back next week in another episode of Kap or No Kap. I'm your guest host, Andy King. God bless and be well. That's a wrap. You guys are fabulous.